I want one div in my header to contain all of this content, and it's going to be sized at 1000 pixels wide. In my main section, I'm going to need another div to hold all this content, and it will also be 1000 pixels wide, as you can see from the grid. In my footer, I'm going to need a div to hold all this content, and as you can see, it's also going to be 1000 pixels wide. So since I have at least 3 divs on this page that'll be the same width, I'll create a class called container. So I'll have 3 containers on my page, one in my header, one in my main section, and one in my footer, and they will all share the same property, which is width. All share a width of 1000 pixels. Makes it much easier for me to write the CSS properties. So in here, I'm going to add a class and then click OK. Now notice what happened. Dreamweaver created a div of class container, and all of this content that I had selected, my title and my navigation menu, is contained inside this div, as you can see. Now let's give some styles to this div. First, we need to add a selector for it. So I come down here, click on this div, and then add a selector. Notice Dreamweaver just uses dot container as the selector. Dot is used to say that this is a class. So all elements of the style container will share the properties that I'm just about to add. I'll start with the width. So I've added the width as 1000 pixels. I also want this div to be centered so that there's an equal amount of space on the left and right, and it kind of sits in the center of the page. Let me show you before I do that what this div looks like now. As you can see, when I resize my window, this div is not centered. So if I want to center it, I need to tell Dreamweaver using the CSS properties that I want to center it. And here's how. Under Layout, we go to Margins. Now margin is just the space to the left, right, top, or bottom of your element. If we set the left margin and the right margin to auto, that will center this div. You see that? As soon as I change the margins to auto, now my div is centered even as I resize my window. So the same will happen in the browser window. This design view is just giving us a rough preview of how things will look in the browser. I'll save all, and let's preview how this looks in the browser. Okay, so as you can see in Firefox, here is my header. Inside my header, my container starts here. As I resize my window, the margins adjust automatically to keep my container centered. None of this other stuff is centered, but because I put this inside a container, it's centered. Now one problem we see is this doesn't look like how I want it in my sketch. I have a white border all around my header. I don't really want that. I want my gray background to stick to the edges of the window. Let's change that. Back in Dreamweaver. To remove that white space, I need to style the page body, which contains all of the visible content. So I come down here, I click on body and add a selector for it. So to make sure that there's no space around my page body, under layout, I'm going to set all of my margins to 0 pixels. A quick way to set all 4 margins together is to click on this link in the middle. So all 4 values are now connected. I just need to change one. I go to pixels, I leave it at 0, and look what happened. No more white space around my header. Let me save all and preview again. Now my header sticks to my window nicely, there's no space around, and that's how I wanted it. Next, I'm going to add my logo, add this space so that it pushes everything down. I have a nice empty space above, and then change the style of my page heading. So let's bring in the logo image. Now I want the logo image to appear inside the container, that is this div, but before my title. So what I've already done to prepare my image is, inside my website files folder, I've made a folder called images, and in there I've added a PNG file of my logo. I'm using PNG because I want transparency around this circle. If I used a JPEG, I would not be able to get transparency. So I make sure my cursor is in the right place. It's just before animation. Then insert image, and under my images folder, I choose the logo. And here it is. So right now the logo sticks to the top. I want to push everything down, as you can see, by 100 pixels. So here's how. Inside my header, I just want to add an empty space of 100 pixels at the top. In CSS, we can do this with what is called padding. Just like margin is the space around an element, such as around my header, around an image, around a div, padding is empty space within an element that pads the inside edges of the element, keeping a little gap between the edge of the element and what it contains. So inside my header, which is here, I want to make sure I have the right selector before I make any changes. So in my header properties, as you can see, I have my width and height set. I'm going to come down to padding and set a top padding. You can set padding individually for each side of 100 pixels. Notice how that pushed everything down. Again, save all, and let's preview. That looks more like it. Now, for my page heading, Animation and Stuff by Sunny Kharbanda, I want it to be in big text. To make this text big and bold, I'm going to format it as a heading in HTML. HTML has many sizes of headings. First, I'm going to put my cursor at the beginning of this heading and hit enter. What this does is it separates this text out and makes a paragraph. As you can see here, it shows me a P tag, which stands for paragraph. I can click anywhere within this heading and click on P This selects the entire paragraph, and in my properties I can see that that's the format. I want to change this format to heading 1 instead, and that makes my heading big and bold.